Not that I'm going to share it, but okay.
Yeah, we're not running a background check on you, Kathy. So,
I love it. I love it. Did
okay.
you see my hat?
Yes, yes.
Kind
I
of
missed
cool, right?
I missed the
This was the
deadline.
Oh, this was the other one.
I
Can
know
you
I
see?
woke up the morning after and went, oh,
Oh,
gone.
they
But
fit so nicely, and yeah, they I thought they did them really well. I was pleasantly surprised.
okay, so I promised there'd be more Vahine on here, and it's just scheduling. It's not like I like the boys better than the girls, but
You
today,
know that.
for those of you with memories that are as foggy as mine, I am here today with Kathy Enos Thurston,
Yes.
and you are on Oahu.
I am. I'm out in Kailua. So lived in
Oh,
Kailua. Yeah. We raised our
right
kids
on.
out here. Yeah.
Yeah, it was awesome when I contacted Kathy earlier this week or whenever it was. She was busy taking her morning beach walk. How awesome is that?
Yeah.
Kailua Beach, walking along. I mean, you must just your head's clear when you're done, man. Oh,
Yeah.
it's beautiful. I miss that area so, so much.
I know, I've lived here since the early 80s, but I grew up in Kaneohe, next town over. But I was working so much when we first moved here, raising the children and uh, your career and, trying to pay the bills, pay for the house mortgage and whatnot. And I didn't really get to enjoy it that much. So, since I got retired, I was like, now I get to start really enjoying the beach. And every time you go out there, it's beautiful to be in God's creation. Clears your
Oh,
head, makes you happy, great endorphins, especially as we age. We need more of those, right? Makes ourselves feel happy and just good about who we are and especially where we are. We can't all be in Minnesota, Kermit, but we send our aloha to you, and it's great because it also hopefully reminds everybody, don't forget to come home every now and then for those of our classmates that have moved away.
whenever I introduce myself up here, I say I was born in Hawaii, but I live here now in Minnesota. And they go,
What?
what? And I say, yeah, okay, I'm a poor decision maker. That's all it is to it.
I don't think so. Maybe you're just called to go up there and spread the aloha, right?
Yeah,
I
right,
think
right, right.
wherever Hawaiians go on the planet, we naturally instinctively know all about aloha, the true meaning, the aloha spirit, and oftentimes we're sent out as ambassadors, if you will, just to go out and share aloha.
Yeah, I've hooked up with a Facebook hui called the Frozen Ohana, and it was initiated. I got in with the group, met the head guy, and then found out later on he's the son of Martha Farrar.
Oh my goodness, our other classmate, one
Yeah.
of our classmates, yeah,
So it
Kamara, I
was
think.
like I should
Yeah.
have asked. I should have asked her. Yeah, it was because his last name's Camara. So I thought, oh,
Wow.
no, I didn't know any Camaras in high school. So what year did you start Kamimia?
I grew up in Kaneohe, Hi'ea Elementary, King Intermediate, and then I finally tried for Kamehameha in this my freshman year to go into high school. And I got my letter that I did not get in. So I was actually all set to go to I was actually going to go to the Priory or I tried for Ponoho and whatnot. I got into Ponoho, but my heart was really set on going to Kamehameha so I could learn to speak Hawaiian because I was raised by my Hawaiian grandmother and the only Hawaiian I would learn is whenever I asked or inquired, she would teach me or she would answer my questions. Lucky I was a little bit, I guess, inquisitive or curious. Some people would say nosy, but I thought, no, no, no. I was just curious and inquisitive. And remember, that was a generation they were not allowed to speak Hawaiian. And how do you kill a culture? It's like don't let them, kill their language. It's like you kill a language, you kill a culture. And of course, we were fortunate to grow up in the 70s when there was this renaissance and resurgence of Hawaiian, our culture and the olelo and speaking it. But I got the letter that I didn't get in. Then I remember I had signed up to be a junior leader up at Summer Fun up at Hi'ea Elementary that summer. And I remember seeing my dad drive up in a car and he jumped the curb because he was pure Portuguese, so that's what people do. I mean, construction people, they act like they own the place. Just jump the curb, and he was getting as close to me as possible. So I saw him, and I remember we were kind of right in the middle of chicken fat. And I don't know if you remember that little calisthenic exercise that um you know, we used to do in summer fun and when we were young kids. But I remember I thought, oh my God, I better get up and find out what does daddy want. So I ran over to the car and he said, hey, Kathleen. He goes, we just got a call from a Mr. Benham at Kamehameha Schools. They have an opening. Are you interested in going to Kamehameha? And I thought, yes. And if I could do somersaults, I would have, but I can't. And so it was just such, I remember that morning up at Hay Elementary during the summer. And so I was one of those, I guess, late admittees, and what a gift that was for me. But even getting into Kamehameha, growing up in Kaneohe, talk about local tiras. I mean, I would go to school barefoot. And I remember probably one of the hardest challenges was like, oh my gosh, we got to wear shoes. And not just and you can't wear slippers. It had to be sandals that had straps on the back. And I remember I couldn't go to school barefoot anymore. And just things that you grow up, you don't realize you kuaina until you go to Kamehameha, and they taught us how to have manners and certain protocol, and to really embrace the fineries, I guess, of being Hawaiian, if you know what I
Yeah.
mean.
But looking back, I mean, I didn't fully appreciate it at the time.
Yeah.
Looking back, I go, wow, how fortunate. Otherwise, I mean, I never would have been able to pick up a telephone and talk to anybody outside Hawaii.
Yeah.
Seventh grade, they sent me to a speech therapy because I
Really?
had real bad Hawaiian island dialect, is what they called it.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Pigeon Age.
I could not do the THs.
Oh,
You know, there's certain, I don't know, but they talk about hating a class. I hated it, but
wow.
I'm
Wow.
more appreciative now because my wife and I weren't married yet, but we had been going together for a while, and it was our time together was always on the mainland. So I had my mainland voice on 24/7. Then one day, my friend from Waimanalo calls, and I'm on the phone, and we're just rapping pidgin, And I get off the phone, and her eyes are just like, "What
Yeah.
was that?" I had to kind of back up and explain, but it's yeah. So we made it through. We all graduated. Where did Kathy go next?
When I was in high school, in fact, it was junior year, I actually started to formally take hula. And prior to that, it was like, at home listening to mom and dad's stereo and the Surfers and Danho and the Lees and Marlene Sai and all this beautiful music that as I'm babysitting my younger brothers and sisters, I just make up hula and just on my own, like as little girls would. And so finally, it was my junior year in high school, and my mom told me, uh, Kathy, I think you should go take hula. And I was exposed to it by Auntie Winona Beamer. Auntie Nona Beamer was kind of like my first teacher, so to speak, formal
Wow, that's
teacher.
awesome.
Yeah, and I remember learning, Vahine Hololio and different songs, and being part of Hawaiian Ensemble, eventually at band, I was in the band. But I told my mom, yeah, I would love to do that. So after school, I'd kind of ride the bus down to the terminal and just walk. At that time, my kumu was Auntie Kealoha Kalama. So she was over at the Bishop Museum teaching hula. And as soon as I went, we had to kind of not audition, but she wanted to see, I guess, if we had two left feet or if we had some rhythm. So she goes, let me see, so I at least knew what a koholo and a vamp was and whatnot. And shortly thereafter, she actually asked me to start dancing with her. So I started dancing out pretty quick when I was still in high school. And one of the things she wanted to do was take me with her when she did Hawaiian Airline promotions. So in high school, I was fortunate. I got to kind of travel around and go holo holo and go to the continent multiple times in outer islands and traveling as a promotional sales rep, which was just a fancy name for being a hula dancer. and they would send us all around to just promote business to come back to Hawaii. So I remember, at school, of course, they encourage us at college fairs and whatnot to sign up. So I had enrolled to go to college. And quite honestly, I thought, ooh, two things I might want to do when I grew up was either be a mathematician. I love math, I love numbers, or maybe a lawyer. A litigator. I don't know. My dad said, "You're always asking a lot of questions and you always have a reply." And I thought, oh, Portuguese and Chinese. I got both. Maybe I'll go with but anyway, Portuguese. That's my Portuguese. But I remember I was dancing hula and I graduated, and Hawaiian Airlines called me. They said, "Hey, Kathy, we have multiple trips to Europe this summer. We'd like to send you with the teams." And so I ended up, I had registered for college, but because this opportunity was there for me with Hawaiian Airlines, that summer after we graduated, I went back and forth to Europe 4 times. I went to 20 something states during that summer. It was just a busy summer of traveling, going holo holo and learning how to, I guess, navigate. We didn't have computers back then like we do now. We didn't have cell phones. Imagine that, just landlines. And remember, the landlines only had 6 digits. Now we have 7 digits. I don't know if you remember. And I remember my old telephone number growing up in Kaneohe was 241193, and now it's 247-1193. I don't even know if they still have the number, but you just remember a lot of things that when we grew up, we'd go down to the river and you know what I mean, do projects, have fun, go adventuring, I would call it, where I do kind of feel for the kids nowadays and even my mo'opuna that they don't get to do some of the same things that we were able to do. We didn't maybe have all the things that they have, but I don't know. I just see there was so much value in what we did have for the season we grew up in. So all that to say, I registered for college, and with all these trips lined up, I ended up pulling my registration and I didn't go. So I am a proud graduate of the Kamehameha schools, and that is the extent of my formal education. So,
You're
going,
obviously a very adept learner too, to have gone from less than one junior year to graduating, and you're involved with, organizations that are taking you around places.
yeah, I really feel that I was just blessed, and I think um, life sometimes throws curveballs, but I think we also have to look for, wow, those are some grand slams. You know what I mean? Not that I was a big baseball player, but it's like you realize that I think oftentimes we'll focus on the junk shots instead of the great shots that we've been given. And I really think Charlie and I, my husband, for 37 years, we used to talk about that a lot. I tend to be the one that, oh, the glass is half full. And, Charlie was the opposite, of course, opposites attract. And he's like, oh my God, it's kind of empty. No, honey, it's full. So I think I was really fortunate, and it wouldn't be till later that I would look back, as we age into perfection and we kind of live our lives over the decades like we do with reunion. We get to kind of look back and see all the, I would say, the fingerprints of God actually on our lives, that we're really blessed. And it's kind of like what we do sometimes with the challenges in life or the curveballs that will kind of help. So I was fortunate. I didn't go to college, but I really felt that going to Europe and learning about different cultures and traveling, you learn a lot, not just about yourself, but I think more importantly about others. And it gives you an awareness about who's out there and what's out there, especially when we were born and raised here in Hawaii, most of us, we live on a little island. And I remember going to Europe and places like that, foreign countries, and they would ask, how'd you learn to speak English? Do you guys live in grass shacks? Yes, we actually speak English in Hawaii too. And so it's an opportunity to, I think, build bridges, if you will, right? Relationships with others. And I think Hawaiians are really good about that. The pilina. It's
Yeah.
like pilina with our creator, but pilina with our families and with others. I just think it's so important.
And
So
I think, and after I learned it or started to think it was a good idea, with my mo'opuna, I never really pushed them because I only went to like 2.5 years of college. And I started working and thought, okay, I'm done. I'm making money. That was the whole thing already. So I stopped. But since then, in real life, that OJT, oh my God. I mean, I've learned so much. And
It's
so
really
many of us I
helped.
talk to the same way. So
Yeah. And you know what? I'm not against college. My dad was not a great encourager of higher education, I'll be honest, you know. Um, and yet that was something that I think I thought I was going to do. But I really, at that age, I can honestly say, looking back, I really wasn't sure what exactly I wanted to do in life. And I just knew that, of course, you want to do your best. And I think that's just something instilled in us, not just in our families, but of course at Kamehameha. Kili'Ipawahi, right? She gave us all that charge to go out and become industrious young men and women. And I think for someone like me, where it really was something that was an anchor for me. You know, being raised by a Hawaiian grandmother. And you know what was uncanny, Kermit? This is part of that story getting into Kamehameha. I remember wanting to go, they asked me, the interview question, why do you want to come to Kamehameha? And I thought, I want to come to Kamehameha so I can learn to speak Hawaiian, so I can speak with my grandmother. She spoke English and Hawaiian, but I remember, being at the house when she would have her phone conversations with her girlfriends, and it was all fluent Hawaiian, and I couldn't understand everything. But I remember having that desire to want to learn so I could communicate with grandma. And my grandmother passed, I remember August 10th of 1971. It wouldn't be until after that my dad would drive up there to summer fun at Hay Elementary, say, "Hey, we got a call from Mr. Benham. Mr. Benham, are you interested?" Yeah. So isn't that uncanny that my grandmother would pass and then I would get an invitation to fill one of the desires of my heart. I took Hawaiian language. I'm not fluent, but I understand a little bit, enough to maybe get by. I really should have taken more, but grandma's in heaven and you know what I mean. I guess my desire wasn't as important as I thought. I think it was more to be able to be in relationship maybe with grandma.
yeah.
But isn't that funny how things sometimes happen? Like, didn't get in, grandma passes away. Oh, I got in. What?
But grandma's probably going, that's what I wanted. This is
Yeah,
it. So
yeah, I got a desire of my heart. But all that to say, yeah, I remember then I go into a career and I got asked, I remember, to serve on the as a board of regent for the University of Hawaii. And the gentleman that called me for the governor at the time, Governor Caetano, he said, Kathy, governor wants you to move from Hawaiian Homes Commission to the Board of Regents. I said, no, I don't want. I like being on the Hawaiian Homes Commission. I'm helping Hawaiians, serving Hawaiians. And he said, no, 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 the governor wants you over here. And I remember my excuse I gave him was, but you got to tell the governor, I did not go to college. I'm only a Kamehameha School's graduate. Let him know. And so Bert Kobayashi, who was the guy on the other end of that call, said, Kathy, you can't use that excuse. I didn't go to college either. And so, I think it's important to remember that higher education is important. However, it's more about the spirit and the motivation and the self-initiative that we have inside ourselves, right? To become industrious in whatever we're called to do.
yeah. Now, not to miss a step there, you're
Okay.
dancing professionally. How long did you dance professionally?
I danced professionally for quite a few years. There it was at Hawaiian Airlines. I come back, and I start. My dad, for my mom and dad, for my graduation present, got me a 1975 Datsun pickup. Kamehameha school colors. I think that thing was only like $3,000 at the time. This is back in 75. Can you imagine?
Oh,
And so,
easily.
right? But it was a white pickup and inside had a blue seat. Hello, Imua. Blue interior. And he told me, he goes, Kathy, this is your graduation present. Mom and we made the down payment and the monthly payment is $99 a month. And the whole first year, we paying your insurance. After that, you need to get a job and make sure you make the monthly payments of $99 a month and you pay for your own insurance. And so knowing that that was an expectation going to be my kuleana, I thought, okay, Hawaiian Airlines was great for traveling and educational purposes, but it didn't pay well. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
People that when we were out on tour, we would just get per diem. So only you only got paid when you were out traveling. And I thought, okay, I got a bill to pay. It's gonna come due soon. Every month I'd have to pay $99. So I got offered a job to go work and travel. So I went into Hawaiian Adventure. That was kind of a gift as well, and I loved it. I'm going to say out of all my jobs, that was by far my favorite. It was taking people all around. People would fly in every week. There'd be hundreds flying in. The company I worked for anyway, and we would meet them at the airport and spend a week or two with them. Somebody would do itineraries, and of course, I got to dance hula, take a lot of pictures, share about our culture, share about our Hawaii, and hopefully educate these tourists, these visitors to our islands. Um, I did that for a few years, and then I told myself if I ever met somebody I was going to marry, I was going to get out of that job because you work crazy hours, fun. It was great pay because your pay was small, but you made great money on tips and commissions. So I thought, if I ever met somebody I was going to marry, I'm going to get out of there and go do a 9 to 5. And so I met Charlie, and I knew from the moment we met, it's like, oh my God. On the third day, he said, I think we should get married. I was like, okay.
Charlie
And
graduated from where?
he went to University Lab. He was a 13-year Hummers,
Oh, okay.
University Lab School from kindergarten to senior year. Great athlete. Ended up going to college up, in Whittier and whatnot. But he's a couple years older than us. And because of that, though, I ended up from there, I shifted from tourism into banking.
Where
I
did you
love
guys meet?
We met, it's so funny because you would have thought that there would have been several places, but it was my work. Two things happened. It was July of 77. It was the 1 year anniversary of the sailing of the Hokulea. And they had a huge concert at the Waikiki Shell. July of 77. And at that concert, they were celebrating the Hokulea sailing, the voyage of 1 year, and also the Hokulea band. I don't know if you remember Mike Tawa and Mike Kaava and Kili Itawa and Roland Casimiro. They had this band called Hokulea. And all the songs were written and dedicated to the sailing, the voyaging canoe Hokulea and its cruise. And so they were going to have a big concert, which I got invited to by some other, travel friends, travel industry friends. And I remember that's where Robert Casimiro and Wayne Chang first really shared the Gentlemen of Nakamale with the world. It would
Wow,
be at
okay,
this
okay.
concert. And I remember seeing him. This is an interesting story, a little bit of a offshoot, a little tangent. But I remember the setting is I'm here in Hawaii, and believe it or not, back then they call them stalkers today, but I had some stalkers. And right, they would like it'd be crazy. They would kind of like, find out where you live, all and I'm like, oh my gosh, the only way I can get away from some of these people is I gotta relocate. And so I was thinking of going to go work for an airline. A friend of mine said, Kathy, maybe you should go here. And this is before I met Charlie. And I thought, oh, okay, maybe I would be able to relocate to the continent. But if I was going to be a flight attendant, I'd be able to travel back and forth pretty freely to see my family and whatnot. So I was considering it. And as I was waiting for those tickets to come for me to fly up to Texas for this um, interview, some of my friends from Hawaii Adventure, where I used to work, said, Kathy, come with us. We're going to go to the Waikiki Shell to see this concert. So here I am. We're back in the, the grass, the grass area, an LMA house. There's a whole bunch of people that you would know that were Kamehameha graduates and just people that we worked with. So we're in the back and people are passing around this binoculars, the girls and the guys, I guess. And the binoculars comes by me and I'm not kidding. I look for a little bit because we're so far back, right? And it's when Robert has the boys come, the men of Nakamale come out and dance. And I see them dancing, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I saw Charlie. And at that time, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit sassy. My heart had been broken once or twice. I thought, oh no, I'm not gonna go out with anybody unless they really pursue me and court me. And just kind of trying to guard my heart. And I remember seeing Charlie, and it was really crazy, whether some people might call it a prophecy or prophetic, or I just call it, I called it, my angels kind of came down and said, I just knew almost instantly that I didn't know his name, I didn't know anything about him. But when I saw Charlie from that distance, I thought, oh my God, somehow I knew that was the man you're going to marry, Kathy.
Wow.
All he has to do is see you and he's going to know too. And I never saw him again until my boss, Ben, sent me and a few other gals to go preview a show at the Halikulani. And I did find out his name. I think our classmate Michael, I saw Michael one day, Michael Crab, and I said, "Hey, the men were dancing was awesome." I said, "I know almost everybody else because majority of them are Kamehameha, except I didn't recognize actually two guys, and one of them was my Charlie, and the other one happened to be his brother. His brother Paul was a Punahou graduate. And so Michael Crab tells me, gotta be Chaz you're talking about. I know you know everybody else. And I said, oh, is that his name? And that's all I knew about him. Anyway, in the meantime, my boss sends me and three other women. We go to check out this show at the Halikulani. And the show is Marlene Sai. And she has the men of Nakama Lani. She called them the men of Nakamalani, not of Nakamale. But the four men that she has dancing are Charlie Padua, Paul Lucky, Ted Makalena, and my Charlie Thurston. And I'm not kidding. We saw each other that night and something happened and he contacted me after. And of course, we did go out and dare I say it, we fell in love. It's like on the third day, he said, I think we should get married. I was like, okay. And he goes, but
Wow, that is
it was like instantaneous attraction. And on the third day, he said, but I'm kind of old-fashioned. I think we should go together for a year, be engaged for a year, and then get married. And that's exactly what we did. So 37 years, yeah, with my, if he was alive today, it'd be 47 years.
that is just an
Crazy.
amazing, a crazy story.
I know. I tell my girls because quite honestly, now here I was preparing myself to leave to get away from somebody that was stalking me that wouldn't leave me alone. You know what I mean? The next thing would have been, I guess, getting a TRO or something like that. But lucky for me, God sent in Charlie, my knight in shining armor. He came in and the rest was history. I
And
mean,
you talked about timing, like with your grandmother. You were
exactly.
on your way out the door.
Amen. Yeah, I was. Yeah. I kind of was taking things into my matters into my own hands, like what do I need to do to adjust to not just keep me safe, but you don't know what's gonna happen, right? And so yeah, timing. He's
Awesome.
I
Yeah,
know.
that,
So yeah, yeah, God sent me a big knight in shining armor. Bodyguard, if you know what I mean.
yeah. So you said you ended up in banking then?
Yeah, so out of tourism, I shifted because now I met the man I was going to marry. And before I had told myself, if you ever meet somebody you're going to marry, you're going to get out of this job. You're going to go into you know what I mean, something where I don't have to be working nights and things like that. And so that got me into banking. I remember January 2nd, 1979, I started my career at First Federal. The two banks had just merged, Island Federal and First Federal. I remember Mr. George Cook and Wayne Jackson. Um, and I started as a teller. I remember making $525 a month. And I loved numbers. I loved math. So I was kind of in heaven, being able to balance cash and numbers all day long. I loved it. The extrovert in me, I think, loved the interaction with people, being able to talk story and meet different people and help them. And I kept getting promoted, promoted, promoted. I remember I was working there. I got married that year. Uh, you know, we I got promoted. I mean, I was really blessed. I mean, I really got promoted quite a bit pretty quickly, but I remember I got married when I was 21, had Tiffany at 22, bought a condo at 22, had Tatum at 23, sold the condo and bought the house at 23. It just went boom, boom, boom. My prayer was like, oh, please, I hope I'm not divorced by 24. You know what I mean? Things were always moving pretty fast. And I remember buying the house in Kailua. It was fee simple. So I told Charlie, I said, let's put in an offer. And we did. We got the house, and I said, the land is fee simple. We don't have to pay lease rent. If anything happens, we own the land. We could put up a tent for goodness sakes. Of course, I know now it wouldn't have complied with, the Uniform Building Code, but at that time, you're just lucky to just get a piece of land in our homeland. And I think that that kind of breaks my heart a lot with a lot of our, local kids and local people having to relocate because of the high cost of living here in Hawaii.
Yeah.
But yeah, I went into banking and I loved it. I loved banking. But I guess I've kind of loved all the places wherever I've been placed. I just have really appreciated all the different opportunities.
Now, okay, so you're doing banking, but I know when our paths crossed when I was still living at home,
Yeah.
I went to go see you for something, and it was down like south of Nimitz or something, a big building. You were
Oh,
upstairs, Donna was downstairs. That was construction related, wasn't
yeah.
it?
Yes. So I was
Okay.
in banking for a few years, and then my dad was always in drywall. He was in drywall construction. In fact, I was just speaking with Huolani earlier today, and our dads were best buddies. They were partners in, they got themselves in trouble a lot with their wives, our mothers. But we Hualani and I knew each other from high school because our dads were such good friends. And they're a little bit, I guess we'd say kolohe, but Uncle Gilbert and my dad, they would do a lot of things, um, you know, work hard, play hard, right? That was their motto, I think. And dad was in drywall construction, and he had wanted me, I think, because of my passion and love for math and numbers and whatnot. He had me do little side projects for him, like, hey, Kathy, can you do cost engineering for Halikaheka project or Pacific Monarch buildings that he was doing? He was a subcontractor as a drywall contractor for Charles Pankow Builders. And I loved it, so I kind of got exposed to construction early on. My dad, I was the oldest of six kids. We were cheap labor, right? It was like free 50 an hour, right? I used to joke, with my siblings. It's like, hey, you guys got your tools, his broom and shovel were our tools. So it's like after dad's job site, after he'd be working, if he didn't want to pay the guys, he'd like bring in his kids, right? We'd be cleaning the job site on the weekend or something, so that when the men came back to work on Monday, it was all nice and neat for them. So I was exposed to construction early on. In fact, I remember being a young girl and my dad gave me his old set of tools. Remember those screwdrivers with those red handles? And they would be kind of like you could put a screw at the end, you could change the bit, but you would actually manually pump it in order for it to turn. And I was so excited when he gave me my own set of tools, his old tools basically, in a little nail box that, you got the finished nails and, different kinds of concrete nails in there, depending what you were gonna do. And I remember growing up in Kaneohe, building, my first thing I did was build a little like a window station, a window stand, so that when we could make pretend and play, school or store or whatever, but we had a little wood stand. And I remember building that. And I thought to myself in the garage at Kaneohe, I thought, hey, someday I think I might be the first woman carpenter. That's what I actually thought in my little Portuguese brain. And I thought maybe I'll be a female carpenter. So that little seed was planted when I was young growing up. Well, I'm exposed to it. Of course, in the meantime, I've been exposed to these other careers. But my dad always kind of kept me close. He would share things with me and whatnot. In fact, my mom would always say, "You just like your father. You just like your father." And if you knew my mother, that was not a good thing for me to be just like my father. You know what I mean? But I guess in a lot of ways I was, the boy that, there's four girls and two boys, and the girls came before any brothers. And so, we grew up, maybe I guess we'd call it tomboys, but we grew up, it's like my dad would say, go over there, get the forklift, bring him over here. And you better hustle. You better not be dilly-dallying. It's like, you go get it and hurry up. No such thing as no can or cannot. That was not allowed in our vocabulary. You better try, and you better figure out, and you got to learn quick, else you might get a slap or two, So that was the environment in which I grew up. And being the eldest, I think you tend to be a little bit more, okay, hurry up, come on, taking care of, siblings. It's just an instinctive thing. Anyway, I'm working at the bank. I'm operations supervisor at our Kailua branch. At the time, I just had Tatum, and my dad calls me up and he's like, Kathy, I really want you to come work for me. I said, Dad, I love you, but hey, I've got an employee mortgage over here. And now this is the time. Remember the time of President Carter?
Okay.
Anyway, at that time, inflation was super high. Interest rates for homes and for home mortgages as well as bank certificates was crazy. It was like 12 to 16% in that range. The lowest right at that time when I was working in banking was 5.25 to 5.5,
Wow.
depended whether your banking, your savings account was with a bank or savings and loan. Back then they made a difference. FDIC insured the banking, FSLIC was savings and loans. But what they were doing in 1980, 81 is they were trying to merge the two to bring them all under one umbrella, so to speak. That being said, for me to buy a home, for Charlie and I to buy our own home without any co-signers was a big deal. We were able to, buy a little bit, sell, make a little bit. We bought some lots, sold that, bought the condo, sold that, made a little bit, enough for our down payment to qualify for our own mortgage here in Kailua. But what was crazy is the interest rates were ridiculous. So I do feel for everybody today, but I would even caution everybody like, just be patient, be calm. You know what I mean? This too shall pass. It's gonna all work out. We grew up in the time of President Carter when inflation was through the roof. We were paying interest rates of 12 to 16%. So my mortgage, my home mortgage for Charlie and I was over 10%. But
Wow.
the employee benefit, and this was a big thing for banking. Again, it was just God's timing in my life. My employee benefit, I only had to pay 6%, which we all know today, we'd be like, what? 6%? But that was a great thing when the rest of the country was in the 12 to 16% range. So I think cycles come and go, trends come and go. It's what we do, and I think our attitude, how we're going to attack things or address things. What is our perspective? We have to, and I think we learned that in the 70s, right? I mean, think about it. From high school, we should drink out of water hoses, and all of us are still alive, right? I remember when fax, like a fax machine came out, we're like, what? Then pagers, what? Cell phones. I remember October of 1986 buying my
You
first brick,
you know
right?
when they first came out with bottled water,
Oh,
I swore on my deathbed,
what?
there's no way I am paying for water.
Yep.
Well, that was short-lived. Yeah.
I know, right? The sad part is they don't tell us about some of the effects of the, what is it, PBAs or whatever, those plastics, microplastics. Anyway, that's a whole nother story. But it was that time. And so I tell my dad, I said, "Hey dad, I know you'd like me to go work with you, but the employee mortgages are this, and if I leave, I will see my mortgage balloon up, not quite double, but by about 80%." And fortunately or unfortunately, or it's just as things would work out, Charlie had lost his job at Hawaiian Airlines. That was one of his jobs because United had that big strike. I don't know if you remember back then in the late 70s. So he got affected. And I told him, I said, "Hey, you might want to consider coming to work for the bank." He was working at the bank. And fortunately for me, I checked with our employment, our human resources gal. I said, "Hey, if I ever left, being that my husband is an employee, will he be able to maintain our employee rate since it's only him and I on the mortgage?" And what was the answer? Yes. It gave me the freedom to leave and pursue construction, and Charlie was able to stay there. It all worked out. But I go into construction, and I work with my dad in drywall for a bit, but really his intention was he wanted me to work with him or work for him in this other business. He had gotten into another company to help out his friend with the best of intentions. And his friend wasn't able to buy him back out like they had originally planned. So then my dad gets stuck with running this company, and the company wasn't doing that great, I guess, doing 2 million a year, and they were losing money. Anyway, his intent was really for me to go help him there. So I went in, learned a little bit more about construction accounting. But I found out really quick that I love construction. It's either in your blood or it's not. And so for me, I was fortunate. I got to start doing something that I was not just passionate about, but I realized, ooh, I've got some tools to do this. And I never ever want to take for granted the great people that have worked with me or that I've had the good fortune to work with because, Kermit, any business you're in, it's a people business. Everything we do, it's about people. And I'm grateful that actually led me from drywall into getting my drywall contractor's license and, of course, my general engineering and building license. And I was able to take those exams. You have to have supervisory experience doing it. So I didn't do it, I guess the traditional way. I didn't need a mechanical degree or a civil degree to do design because I didn't do design. I focused on the constructability or the contracting aspect of it. And so, of course, you have to take, contractor's license tests and things like that. But yeah, proud to say that the geometry that I learned at Kamehameha, I mean, I got a 97% on that, engineering exam. And it's really because it really has a lot to do with mathematics, so fortunately for me, I did have a passion for that. And I'm just really blessed. You saw me that was when I started my own firm. I worked with my dad. I was president in Ideal Construction. And then when they were doing really well, I really felt led to go out on my own, which I did. So I had my own construction company. Um, but I spent about 30 years in that industry. Love it. It was a great industry for me, challenging, rewarding. Of course, I had the wrong kind of plumbing, I was told, to be in that industry, if you know what I mean. I remember
Mhm.
telling some guy early on when I first wanted to get my drywall license, I said, "Ooh, I'd like to really get my drywall license, contractor's license." And the guy, who was a former Kamehameha graduate, by the way, older than us, he looked at me and he said, "Kathy, you cannot." And I remember asking that three-letter word, "Why?" And he did not hesitate. He just looked at me and said, "Because you're a girl." Ooh.
Whoa.
And you know what? Grateful for Gerald. I won't tell you his last name so that I protect the guilty. I mean, the innocent. I mean, but if he had not, I think, challenged me that way, I don't know if I would have done it. But it was a challenge, I think. And I was motivated, and I gotta tell you, I love the construction industry. And I think it is the challenge. You gotta have so many people working together towards a common good or towards a common objective, right? You've got architects or engineers in the civil side, which is really, I spent 20 years in my career on that civil side, which was putting in infrastructure, right? Putting in water distribution systems, electrical duct banks, phone communication lines, other infrastructure, drainage, sewer work, and, different types of things, foundational things. But I found it to be just fascinating and challenging. And you needed to learn about different things. And every day was going to be something new. There were never two things that were exactly alike. I'm talking about job site conditions. And I think that's a lot like life. You know, we just had Easter yesterday. It's clear the past is history or her story. We're not promised tomorrow, but today's a gift. That's why they call it the present. It's like it's really important, I think, for us to enjoy what we have and be grateful to see. I still feel very blessed that, wow, I was able to do uh, work in an industry that was so rewarding. Um, I remember my first project on my own was the Hilton Hawaiian Village. It was my first drywall project on my own without my dad. And it was $100 million master plan renovation of the Hilton Hawaiian Village. This is back in the 80s. And I remember my drywall portion was a $3 million job, is my first job. So you either got to be a little bit psycho, have a little, you know what I mean? Um, a little bit of courage, but the most important thing is I think you got to be a team player. I think back, how in the world did we get to do so many projects when I myself could not do the work? I can't operate the backhoes and drive the dump trucks and hang the drywall and finish it. It's like we need to recognize that all the things we do, I think, are very interdependent on each other, and I just feel grateful that, of course, I feel grateful that I made it out alive. It allowed me to retire when I did. Um, worked hard, but I'm just grateful. Yeah.
And
Very.
sensing your personality, I can see where on a daily basis you probably just thrive on putting out fires.
Yeah.
Kathy, they
Well,
never dropped this off yet. Kathy, so and so never show up. And that's when you just, am I
yeah.
right? You
Yeah.
enjoy
I
it?
mean,
Yeah.
to me, yeah, everything in business, I guess I kind of look at things in life, it's risk management, right? You're trying to set yourself up and set others up for success to minimize risk, make sure it's a safe place, safe environment, whether it be for your families, classmates, your business, wherever you're placed, right? Um, you want to assess. And my dad, he may not have been highly educated, but I remember he taught us two things I want you kids to remember. Number one, wake up early. Number two, pay attention. And I think that pay attention was valuable because basically he's saying in a very simple way, pay attention to where you are, assess your condition, assess your terrain. Where are you headed, what's behind you, what are you taking with you? So I think his way he really instilled a lot into us. But yeah, you want to manage risk, but also when risk happens, because things are going to happen even under the most well planned and thought out situations. But how are you going to react? Uh, our pastor used to say, "Hey, you don't really know what's in a jelly donut till you squeeze it." You know what I mean? It's
That's a
good, right?
good one. I
It's
like
a
that.
good one,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, it's really good. It's like you really don't know what's in somebody until they get squeezed. You're going to see the depth of their character, integrity, kindness, right? Motivation. When somebody is under pressure, you're going to see really what's inside that jelly donut.
I'm gonna I'm gonna memorize and use that one because probably my most favorite saying, I lived in Texas for a lot of years, and my most favorite saying I ever learned was, if you have to eat a plate of frogs, eat the big frog first. and I mean, it's applied to so
Every,
much in my life, man.
yeah, yeah,
It's like me and my grandson, we help out at the church and we're putting up tables or taking down tables. And I tell him, okay, we got to take the tables over there. We go start way over there first. So as we're working, it's getting shorter.
yeah,
Expend all
yeah,
your energy on the hard stuff, and then after that, you're tired, but you can handle it. So okay, you don't know
yeah. No,
what's in
I
a jelly donut until
no,
you
I,
squeeze
I
it.
completely agree. It's to on your frog one, it's like I think there's a saying too, right? How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. In other words, don't quit, just keep going. You can't be so overwhelmed by your circumstance that it'll freeze you or it'll stop you, right?
Yeah,
You got it little bit at a time, little bit, little bit. But yeah, I like that too. The frogs. Yeah, do the hard stuff first. That's wisdom
yeah.
actually.
So I've heard in our talk today you have two kids,
Two daughters, Tiffany and
okay,
Tatum.
and
Yeah.
grandkids.
I've got five mo'opuna from 16 to 6. Four boys and one girl. One girl smack dab in the middle. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I love it. We're a very close family. One, my youngest daughter lives on the continent with her husband, and my Tiff, my oldest one, she lived in Nashville for about 7 years. She had a home there. She was touring and singing, and she met Keoki, who she knew for 20 years from Kamehameha. This is uncanny too. 2 blocks away from us here in Kailua, 2 years older than her at Kamehameha. And funny, when you're supposed to see with certain eyes, you will. They had known each other for all that time, but it wouldn't be until many 20 years later that, oh my gosh, they looked at each other, they fell in love, saw each other in a different way. And so I was happy because it got her home. So at least I have one at home back in Hawaii now. And if not, maybe I would have been on the continent too to be closer to my mo'opuna. Charlie and I had a home, on the continent for a bit because we wanted to make sure we had, your time with your family is the most precious. And after you raise your children, then it's like, wow, we get to be kupuna now, and invest that time in our mo'opuna.
So did both of your daughters attend Kamehameha?
No, only Tiff, only the oldest one. The youngest one went to school here in Kailua, Tatum. And yeah, so we'll see, what happens if maybe any of her children or my mo'opuna will come back. But I know my eldest grandson, Isaiah, he's into this. He's so proud of being Hawaiian. He was born here. So he's always calling me Tootie. That's my grandma name. It's not Tutu. I'm Tuti because my mother-in-law was Tutu. So I told Charlie, I said, there's no way I can be Tutu. That's mom's name. So I'm a Portuguese Tutu. Not going to be a vovo or vuvu, whatever it is. But I said, and one day at that Pu'uhale office where you had visited me at, it came to me. It's like Tuti. So I'm Tuti. Charlie was Puna. And he's always like, Tuti. He's fascinated with our Hawaiian history, our culture, and Hawaiian foods. And so they're coming during the summer and I'll have them. So I'm looking forward to that. They'll be with me for a month. I'm excited.
So you're fully retired now?
I've been fully retired actually since 2011, almost 14 years
Okay.
from a career, but I've never worked harder. So I do a lot of, I have a lot of projects and nonprofit type of things, church, pastoral things. I have a women's group called Koahine, which literally means a woman warrior. A lot of us could probably do a little bit of damage this way, but called to be prayer warriors. Got a lot of Koahine sisters that happen to be classmates. Sister Abby and Corey and Terry and Donnelly and Napella. And so, it's kind of been great that we've known each other for over 50 years from high school, but many of us that we still keep in pilina or relationship with each other in different ways. And of course, coming to class reunion, it's been a great time just to see how our class is coming together. We have over 130 classmates and guests signed up for classmate night on our Friday in Alumni Week. We have so many committee members and chairs, you've got Crystal as our advisor. And it's a unique gift to have Crystal as not just our classmate and advisor, but hello, she's a trustee for Kamehameha Schools. So we were given a special invite by the CEO to attend Founders Day at Kauai Ha'o in December. There were several of us that did that. So that really kind of kicked off our alumni week, our alumni year, if you
Yeah.
will. January, we had a huaka'i, right, to the Big Island. A wonderful time. Got to go visit KL campus. Kamuela Chun is part of that committee, and Brother Nolan, he got to, show us and teach us about our culturally significant sites, Hilo and in Kohala, and then Brother
I'm
Nolan and Brother Kevin, right?
I'm gonna be sitting down with Camuela tomorrow night, so looking
Oh, I'm
forward to it.
so excited.
And below, before I lose the thread, you're in
Yeah.
touch with Napella
Yes.
because when Doug Panee and I were starting to kind of collect up all the classmate data, she was kind of MIA for a little bit. So
No, I see her all the time. We're in couples
okay,
group together for the past 20 something years. I
okay,
see
good,
Napella
good.
all the time. She owns and runs her own trucking company, Pomai Transport.
Okay, so
Yeah.
she's getting our information and
Yes.
okay,
I don't know what number you guys have or what contact information she has, but I can always call her. We're close sisters and we see each other quite a bit.
that's awesome. Because I thought, especially as we would run into different ones, I'm going, God, there's got to be some way to reach this person. It's like, oh,
Yeah. Yeah, let me know if you ever have that. But yeah, we try to stay in relationship or pilina with each other. But reunion, I hope that this encourages people to come participate, be part of it, even if you can only come to one or two events. Big Island was unbelievable. It was great. And then of course we have the our alumni week coming up. Some of us are staying at the Ala Moana Hotel. Some of us are staying in the dormitories. But there's so many events, and we hope to see everybody. But after that, I really encourage people. Corey heads up our Huaka'i committee, and the team over on Kauai is expecting us in August. That's Ulu and Marilyn and Doreen, and the family there that we have. And then on Maui, you've got Keely, Christine Namau, and Kelly Adams, and there's, a family there, right? So, we have so much just all around us. So I'm hoping people will feel encouraged to come.
yeah. And that's a part of why I'm doing this project, but also at the same time, I've already been hearing about people who are not going to be able to attend.
Oh,
So this way they
well,
get to still hear and
yeah,
share what's been going on. So
yeah.
um yeah, so my wife kind of sits there and rolls her eyes and shakes her head because she goes, it's like you have nothing else to do in your life. But hey, it's important to me and reaching people takes, especially with all the time zones. I mean, I've
Yep.
got all these texts that are open ended going, looking at my calendar. And so, but I want to get as much activity as I can. And it's great to hear the
Thank,
direction people have taken.
yeah. Thank you, Kermit. I really appreciate you and your efforts. Thank you. Mahalo. We're just
Yeah.
so grateful. And I think some of our happiest memories were probably when we were carefree and teenagers. Oh, you know what? Some of the girls have been saying, it's like, sis, the difference is now we're teenagers, but we have some money. So, you know what I mean? We can be a little dangerous. It's like we can go holo holo or but the whole intention too with alumni week and reunion was trying to get as many classmates engaged and involved. So I really appreciate, you mentioned Doug Panee. I had asked him to, I volunteered to serve as chair, but I asked him to, come and serve. And so he agreed to be vice chair. He goes wherever. And so I'm so grateful for my little committee as well. Haunani, Daniels, Valeni, you know what I mean? She's doing administration and amazing. And then of course Mike Medeiros, asked him to. He's our finance chair, and Hualani, of course, is doing our hotel. liaison. But you know what's amazing is you get to hear and see everybody's what they're going through, what they've experienced, learning more about them one on one. But it really is being back like when we were young, but maybe no clicks, no you know what I mean? We've outgrown all of that. That is
Yeah.
not part of who we are. So you've got somebody like Doug Panee. I learned that through this in, preparing and getting ready and getting involved. It's going to be his first class reunion ever. Doug Panee has never gone to any class reunion yet. This is going to be his first one. So it's never too late. We
Yeah.
hope people get involved. We hope that they enjoy themselves. And at the very least, I hope people are getting their newsletters, and Miriam and Peter Kang have been working on that. And just Dwayne with class reunion, classmate night. I got to tell you, I can let this one secret out of the bag. Dwayne Owl created this beautiful curly koa ukulele made with lots of love, right? And that night we're gonna put the tickets out soon. But Makana Aloha, which is a gift of love, which is what we're calling it. And if we look back, Keli'ipawa, he gave us that Makana Aloha. She gave us that gift. And now we get to share that gift with each other. But more importantly, we're hoping too that we'll raise some funds that we can make as a class, as a small donation or a donation to our scholarship fund to kind of give back and to continue this legacy of aloha,
Right on. Well, I'm
right?
looking forward to it. I really am.
I'm so glad you're coming. Yay.
Yeah. I had
Thank
a great time catching up, and I hope
thank
we
you.
all do in one way or another. Thanks for
Yes.
taking the time.
Thank you
I
so
know you're
much,
busy,
Kermit.
so
Look forward to seeing you next month.
awesome.
Aloha. Ahui
Take care.
ho.
God
Aloha.
bless.
God bless you.